Project Sapient is a podcast meant to engage our brothers and sisters in the law enforcement and military communities in conversations that we all know we need to have. All opinions you hear are our own, and they are protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. They are in no way reflect or are meant to reflect the opinion of any specific agency, officer, or service member. Some opinions may be controversial. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy. All right, everyone, welcome. Project Sapient, back at it. Thank you all to our thousands of listeners, both law enforcement, civilian, military, veterans, you name it. I know you all listen and, love all the feedback I get. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, spread the word, spread the news. It's been a few years coming. When I first started this 5 years ago, me and the original co-host, Pete, which we know, Pete is going through a lot of issues with his back injury after going toe to toe with someone very high on PCP. So we know we all know what that's like. So he's I've talked to him a few times. He's pushing forward. He's doing good. So keep him in your heart, y'all, and send him prayers and stuff like that. But today, again, like I say, every time I have somebody, every time I say, special episode, now it's becoming like The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Everyone's like, yeah, here we go, another special episode. But this one, really, I love it. I as soon as I introduce them, y'all are going to know who they are. A couple months back, Ben, we met up at Scott Man. Scott introduced us. Yeah. I think
it's in April.
Yeah, April. March? Yeah. Somewhere around there. Yeah, I think March, actually. We met up. Yeah, it was beginning of March, actually. We met up, and, if you guys, I'm sure my listeners, they know who Scott Man is, and went down there, and we had a barbecue at Scott Man's house the day before, recording with him, and he introduced me. He said, you know what, I got somebody you got to meet. He's like, to him, it was so cool, and it was one of those, like, you got two people who grew up on two different sides of the world or two different sides of the law, but could have, like I could have ended up somewhere else. Ben could have ended up somewhere else, and just same thing. Like you could, but somehow we kind of dug ourselves in our own individual way out of the hell we were in, and just now we're like full march into everything. So without further ado, I know you guys are all, my listeners are all like, who the hell is he talking to? So Jessica, Ben Owens, founders of We Fight Monsters, founders of, I don't know how many companies you have, Ben and Jess, under your belt.
Man, I've lost count of the for-profits. So we've got two nonprofits, Flanders Fields, which is focused on veterans battling addiction, and then We Fight Monsters, which is focused on everybody that's not a vet battling addiction, are impacted by narco trafficking, human trafficking. And then we've stood up, I've lost count, I think a half dozen or more for-profits trying to support the nonprofits because we always spend more than we raise. And then I own a data intelligence company called Black Rifle that does digital media for the gun industry.
Yeah, that is so cool. I mean, so again, sitting with Scott and, having the barbecue, and we had this kind of, deep conversation about what drives people like us, what really gets us moving, going, and what is missing a lot of times in the addiction world, in the veteran suicide world, the first responder suicide world, and the one word me and you agreed on is purpose. Purpose, right? And I know each of you have your story about purpose, but can you, like Ben and Jess, you guys give me your philosophical kind of take on purpose, what it is that got you to where you are?
All right. So what got us to where we are is very intentionally moving towards the things that breaks our hearts, the things we don't want to look at, the evils we don't want to confront, that thing that makes me scroll faster when I'm on social media because I don't want to look at it. And it was through the pursuit of that which breaks my heart, it changes over time. But in general, seeing kids suffer, that breaks my heart. Moving towards that thing, we were able to identify and find our purpose. I think that's a common thread for most veterans that feel lost after service is that they've lost their sense of purpose, but it's not unique to the veteran population, right? I mean, that's something that I think every human being struggles with is why are we here?
Yeah.
And for those of us who have battled addiction, alcoholism, substance abuse, or even an addiction that doesn't involve a substance, for most of us, if we really break it down, what we're doing is trying to fill a void that exists in our soul somewhere with something external. And the like secret trick to it is if you just figure out what fills that void through purpose and service, you don't need the dope anymore. And so that's, from my perspective, that's my take. Purpose, it's always, for me, and I think for most people, it's something linked to service to our fellow man. Jess, what do you think?
Yeah, everything that Ben said. And also, I'm just getting over pneumonia, so my brain isn't working with me like it should be.
God bless you. I don't know how you travel to LA. You're like flying around. I don't know how you do it, Jess.
It was a lot.
She's a beast.
So I might go straight retard for a minute there. And I'm assuming I could say the R word on here.
Oh, come on now. We've talked enough. I think you realize you're okay here.
You didn't drop that word in Hollywood.
I did.
You did good.
Ben did.
Oh, you guys actually did it? Oh, in Hollywood? Oh, Jesus. All right.
It wasn't the stage, though. It's okay.
Yeah.
So what's your take on purpose? What did I leave out there?
Wow. So, I mean, purpose is what drives us. And, everyone knows that. That's a duh kind of thing. But especially for addicts, it's a driving force. Like when you are in addiction, drugs are your purpose.
Yeah.
The acquiring of drugs are your purpose. The finding money for the drugs is your purpose. So for people like Ben and I, when we lost the dope and we lost everything, really, that was pretty much all we had left. And like we really had no hope. We had nothing until we did have to move away. We did have to start everything over again. But we realized like that essentially was what we were missing. We didn't have purpose anymore. So once we found something to really throw ourselves into, because when you're an addict, you don't lose that addictive personality. You might lose the drugs, but you don't lose that personality. We will always be addicts until the day we die. So we had to find something to
fill that void,
because we're gonna actively go towards something.
Yeah.
So why not make it something good? And one thing that we kept seeing was, these children, we see it on social media posts. We had people from Memphis that were still in active addiction that would text us about things. And as someone that grew up in a family full of addiction, I've seen firsthand the trauma that comes with that and how the mistakes of the parents, the addicted parents in particular, can really start fucking with a kid.
Yeah.
And, and then they take that into their adulthood and they do it to their kids. There's this cycle we have to break. And we decided, this could be a very good purpose. And that's where we just went full force into it.
No, I love it. And man, the amount of times, again, like I come from the other side, right? From the law enforcement perspective. And this is just me talking. That's why I always say, like, every cop's different. Every one of us are different, but there's a sort of like, depending on who you are, but there's this kind of thing. Every time I do like a hit, a search warrant, we do a raid with my SWAT team, whatever it is, and we go after, whether they're really bad drug dealers or even addicts who work for drug dealers, right? When we hit the houses and we're going after them, who I feel really bad for. Not only do I feel bad for the addicts after they get locked up, right? Because to me, I know they're battling, right? They're suffering, they're battling themselves. Who I feel worse for are the kids that grow up in that environment, because the kids didn't choose it, right? They were born into it. And like you said, when you're born into it, it's very, like, me growing up, right? I was born into war, right? In Lebanon and Liberia. Like, that's what I was born into civil war. So that's all I knew from my childhood, right? So I can only imagine these kids as they grow up, right? Because now you're dealing with second, third generation of addicts, because that's all they knew. And that's all they understood, and that's all they understand. And, in order to teach them to break that cycle is literally purpose. Is to, like you said, I think you said at one point, you guys had to leave Memphis to kind of get your purpose, that drive back. And it's funny you said, because a lot of the addicts that I've dealt with, that when they left the city I work in and even move out of state, they come back a different person, man or woman. They come back different because they removed themselves from that environment. And now, though, their new purpose is they come back and to get back into that community. We have a couple people that work at the PD as recovery coaches who at one point lived in the city and, B&Es, you name it, all chasing that addiction. But now they're out on the streets giving back, having that new purpose to teach other addicts or to train other addicts, teach other addicts that this addiction isn't something that stays with you, right? You can change it over time. It doesn't have to be, like you said, chasing the dope. You could chase other things and give you some, give you that new purpose. I mean, so you guys, living it and breathing it and showing it, every single day in your posts and in your talks and in your, the way you guys really present kind of shines hope on a lot of addicts. I'm sure you guys see it in Memphis. I know you're doing a shit ton of work out there, which I can't wait to get down there. But now it's like, how it is, just the busier you get, the less time you got. So it's like, man, so I'm definitely like, it's on my calendar for the summer to come down for a couple days and hang out with you guys, man. It's on the radar for me to come down. Good. Because again, I would love to talk, like we were talking to the fellow cops that you were talking about, like to talk to them and kind of, because to me, in my world, I've always, like, I've stopped calling addiction addicts, like, to me, you guys tell me if I'm right or wrong on this sort of philosophy, victims. Like, I hate that word now, victims, right? I call it now, you're a survivor. You're not a victim. Because to me, we're, like I wrote an article a while back for Havoc Journal called The Spoken Word. And it literally about words that are intentional and changes the way you think. I mean, so you guys tell me, like, what do you guys think of victim versus survivor?
Well, we've got a saying in recovery that echoes very true, and it's victims don't recover.
Yeah.
And what that means is, as long as you're embracing the victim mentality, if you're an addict, that's a death sentence. You're not going to get better. Okay. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances were. You could legitimately have been a victim 1,000 times over, but as long as you identify with that, you're never going to get over your addiction. You're never going to beat that battle with the bottle or the pills or, the dope. You've got to look at yourself as a survivor, an overcomer, an underdog, a warrior, somebody resilient. And down to a man or woman, if you look at the people we've worked with over the last 4 or 5 years, the ones that held on to that victim mentality did not make it. And a lot of times they absolutely didn't make it, as in they're dead, Yeah. With the prevalence of fentanyl on the streets today, it's literally life or death, choosing to remain a victim or choosing to, be a product of the hell that you went through.
Yeah.
And being a product of that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, it makes warriors, you know? I know Jess probably has a lot more colorful language about the victim mentality. She can't stand it. And she's
Jess, by all means, like, tell me. Tell the audience, please. Tell us how you feel.
I mean, and same for what he said. As long as you are identifying as a victim, you will never get ahead in life. You will always have that built-in excuse. And as long as you have a built-in excuse, there's no reason for you to go seek better and to try to better yourself, because you always have that excuse. And I will say this also for the survivor part, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. And I use survivor. I do like survivors, but we've gotten into a place now where so many people are starting to use survivor out of context.
Yeah.
And especially, I'm going to really get in trouble for saying this, because we work in the trafficking space, sex trafficking survivors. We've started seeing a lot more than not that they're like, oh, I'm a survivor, but you should give me this, this, and this. And we've been seeing that a lot. I actually saw a post of somebody that's very big in that space. And she was like, oh, I'm a survivor of sex trafficking. And I see y'all just don't give anybody jobs. And hell, I could just go back into the streets, but I'm a survivor and da. And I've been noticing that a lot of people are starting to use survivor, but instead of actually
meaning survivor.
Yeah,
Meaning
meaning.
survivor.
A victim with
And you should give me perks.
So
look,
it sounds like victim to me, not survivor.
yes.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful that when we're using the word survivor, we mean it like actually a fucking survivor. You overcame something and you're now tougher for it.
Yeah.
What she's describing that we've observed in the trafficking survivor community, it's very similar to what you see in the veteran community. We have created we've created an incentive system in America for people to remain in victimhood.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter what you've struggled with or overcome. If you have an incentive to remain a victim, if somebody is paying you to remain in that victim state, the pity party, and as long as we have entire industries built around catering to those victims, it's a hard cycle to break. It's like a mental shift needs to happen. Now, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm super grateful we have all these resources and services out there for combat vets and for trafficking survivors alike. We just have to be careful the way we let people approach that, I guess, if that makes sense.
No, it makes 100% sense. And that's the thing. Like when I hear, like, Jess, what you said about this, sex trafficking survivor, and all of a sudden it turns into the entitlement, and that same entitlement is in victimhood, where I'm a victim of this, therefore you owe me X, right?
Yes.
To me, they're confusing the definition of both. Like you guys said, like Ben, you said, no, you survived this shit. It means you overcame it. You're a survivor. But as long as you're fixated, though, on that thing, you'll forever be a victim. So, yeah, I'm a survivor of 2 civil wars. But if I was to remain fixated on the Civil War aspect and never break out of it, I wouldn't be where I am. I built that resiliency over time because of my past experiences. You guys built your industry, your nonprofits, everything that you guys do is built off surviving that hell you guys came from. And it, like Ben, like you said, for veterans who are also in the addiction world, they're, that overcome it like you've survived 2 wars, basically, to me. You've survived the internal war from that addiction, and you survived the external war of coming back from I think you said you were in Afghanistan, right?
No, we weren't the Afghan evac, but that was as a civilian.
Okay, as a civilian. Okay, all right. But the thing is, though, with me, still, there's an external survivor and there's an internal survivor, right? But when you maintain that victimhood, you're like Jess, like you said, you are never going to break out of it. That's all you're going to be, is forever a victim. And it gives me, brings me back thinking of stories of some addicts I've dealt with over the years. And one of them was so fixated on being the victim of doctors that overprescribe. And I get it. Like, these freaking doctors are monsters themselves. When I hear, like, a fellow vet who was on my podcast a few months back, great guy, and Mike Espinoza, and he spoke about, he was a, Iraq war vet. No, sorry, Afghanistan. His truck got blew up by a massive IED. He was lucky. They were in more the up armored MRAPs, with the V-shaped hull. So he was lucky that it didn't penetrate, but it rocked. I mean, it rocked the freaking truck. And he came home and back injuries, and I couldn't believe how many oxys this dude was getting. I'm sure you guys see it all the time, but this doctor was prescribing him, like, almost, if I counted correctly, if I remember the correct count, like 1,000 pills a month he was being prescribed. He ended up robbing a bank because of his addiction. He did some state time. He robbed this bank while working as a firefighter, active duty, like walked into the bank, robbed it because his addiction, because it was so bad. But even him, right, talking to him, he talks about it as if he's a survivor, not as a victim. Like, he doesn't he blames the doc, right? But he survived it, right? He's doing awesome things now.
You've got to own your part in the circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what he did. He will never deny that I made that choice. Yes, I was addicted. Yes, all that. And, the addiction drove me to do these things. But not once did he say that it's just the addiction. Yeah, I made the decision also, right? I made the decision. And that's the thing, like, even in my, that's all I see majority of addicts still hold on to that victim mentality. Majority of them. And I always tell them, I'm like, listen, I get it. You got into that bad car crash. You got into whatever. And, these fucking doctors got you all hooked up on oxys. And I get it, And finally I tell them, but at some point, man, you got to own up. You got to own up. And I'm sure you guys see it all the time down in Memphis too.
We do. Interesting with my journey into opiate addiction that progressed to heroin addiction started with VA prescribed oxy.
Yeah.
They weren't prescribed to me. They were prescribed to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like so many people's stories do end, mine ended in full-blown heroin addiction. I'm glad we were able to get off the streets before the fentanyl really hit.
Yeah.
We've all got, I think everybody in America has a sob story.
Yeah.
A valid one too. Like, and what Jess is saying, she's not trying to take anything away from the fact they are trafficking survivors. Like, we understand that, but you have to shift the way you're looking at these things. Either you can accept the circumstances you live in today and identify as a victim, and that's it. Your life's not moving beyond that. Or, and here's where I think there's a tremendous power in both the veteran and trafficking survivor communities. Once you choose to look past that and stop identifying as, oh, well, this is what happened to me, start looking at it from the point of view of, this is what I survived.
Yes.
And here's how I did it. Then you start carrying that forward to serve other people who are currently going through it. Well, that's when you can become a warrior again. That's when you become a rock star. You're out there saving lives.
Absolutely.
And down to a man or woman, every time I've seen somebody embrace that paradigm shift right there, they start pulling off amazing things, like just absolutely insane stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's so, it makes me think of Marcus Aurelius. I love reading Marcus Aurelius meditations. Like, great. Stoicism is like I've really, like, for the past several years, I've really dug a lot, like Stoicism, Miyaru Musashi, some of the greatest warriors of all time, And one thing he said is, like Marcus Aurelius, he said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. And that's the thing. It all comes from inside first, right? No matter what you're facing after the fact, like, you get out of it, you whether it's sex trafficking, drug addiction, whatever it might be, you get out of it, but then you've got to shift your mind now, no longer a victim. Now I'm a survivor. And like, Jessica, you gave me that example, like, unfortunately that trafficking survivor is still a victim. Because everything is about her. Like, bring it to me. I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled to that. That's victimhood versus, again, comparison, like you guys, you acknowledge what your past, but now you're forging ahead for others, like service to others, right? That's the purpose, is service to others, service to your fellow man or woman. And that's, that speaks volumes about your character. And that's the thing I really got really hooked in with you guys. You guys, it was a phenomenal night at Scott, especially Scott, like, having us meet and everything. It was awesome because to me, I'm like, to me, I'm like, man, two guys and you just like two people in like the different parts of the world, yet have that same purpose and drive of, service to others before self type of thing. And everything that we do is like, is built around that purpose, because if we didn't have that, I don't know where we'd be. We'd be somewhere else.
I'd be dead.
That's the thing. We'd be dead. Whether it's a veteran suicide or whatever, or addiction. Like it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle that, one, extremely difficult to get out of, right? Because it's just that hard. But your mind and your sheer will is what gets you out of it. And then build off that. So, I want to talk about Owen's Army. I've been seeing this pop up everywhere with you two. So let's tell the listeners, tell us what is Owen's Army.
So Owen Army it's basically a blueprint for how we've done what we've done in Memphis. Now, for those unaware, I have to tell you a backstory to tell you this story.
Yep.
All right. So after Jess and I got sober and, got our businesses back off the ground and had more than we needed again, we realized this is not a good place for us to be, where we have excess. We've been there before and it always ended badly. We would relapse and, end up back in bad places. So we started a nonprofit called Flanders Fields to help other vets battling addiction. And I've got like crippling ADHD. And I fall victim to shiny object syndrome a lot. And we had a shiny object hit us on August 15th of 2021, which was the collapse of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
I had just gotten a charter for a nonprofit to house homeless vets, and I now have a bunch of countryless vets fleeing the Taliban, men, women, and kids, wholesale slaughter, genocide, like the list goes on. We dove in with both feet head first. Feet first? I don't know.
Something.
Anyway,
Something.
Right? Yeah. Powerful metaphor.
Yeah.
We dove in, right? And before that was over, we had a network of 68 safe houses in Afghanistan. And we had a nonprofit with a pretty big name, and we decided to take the lessons we learned in the evacuation out of Afghanistan, and also the initial defense of Ukraine, some hostage situations in Haiti, some human trafficking in Mexico. Like, we've done all this weird stuff with a bunch of special operators. And I wanted to take all of those lessons learned and apply them to the dope track back in Memphis. And let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And we did it. And it worked out amazingly. In the last 3 years, we've been able to doesn't matter. 2 years. Yeah, we've been able to shut down 4 active fentanyl trafficking operations, 1 human trafficking operation. We've been able to get a few dozen drug dealers to leave the dope game behind them and go legit, start businesses. Several of them are actually employing addicts they used to sell dope to, who are now clean. We've helped about 450 people get off the streets of Memphis. That's men, women, kids, vets. I mean, every demographic you can think of, like, we've got them in the fold.
Mm-hmm.
And not just off the streets, but they've stopped committing crime.
Yeah.
They're self-supporting. They're not needing assistance anymore, and they're paying taxes. So we took basically 450 criminals and now have upstanding human beings from those. At any given time, we're housing about 100 to 120 people in the city of Memphis who are going through our program currently. And they're all sober too, same backgrounds that I just mentioned. Like, these are, some of our trafficking survivors. And we work with every law enforcement agency that has a presence in Memphis right now. But we did all of that without sending anybody to jail and without shooting anybody and without a badge. Like, we have no legal authority. And so a lot of people are like, dude, I want to do this where I live. I want to know how you guys did that. And so what we've done is create Owen Army. It's owenarmy.com. And basically what we're doing in there, you're getting access to exactly how we did all of it. We're blueprinting the whole thing out. We're doing trainings on things like open source intelligence gathering, building target packages, purpose building, the entire thing that we've done. We're telling everybody how to do it. And the idea here is, like, to do this in every city, right? We've got to find somebody who can afford to do it. That's kind of important, because this work is not cheap, and it's cost us a lot of money.
Yeah.
But you also have to find somebody that has the street skills and the ability to do it. And almost invariably, those are not going to be the same person. You're going to have. So what I'm trying to do is build teams up, right? So the initial push of the enlistment in Owen Army is $99 a month. And that's so I'm getting people who have the desire to do this and can also afford to spend a little bit of money out of pocket on doing something good. Once we hit 100, and we're getting close or closer, the next 100 are going to be strategically picked from people who are geographically convenient to those first 100 and have some street skills, but they can't afford to do the work. We're going to pair these people up, and we're going to start training them in a group setting, like through Zoom, how to start the process, because there is actually there's a science to this.
Yeah.
And, Scott taught us a lot of it, the human connection, the storytelling. Like us, Scott also has 2 nonprofits and businesses. And so there's a lot of parallels there. Scott and Monty have mentored us through a lot of this. We're essentially packaging up the entire methodology we've used, not just on the street side, but also how I'm spinning up all these businesses to help fund it. So, like, there's entrepreneur training in there.
Yeah.
It's a lot, dude. It's a lot. And, I'm hoping we've already had 1 drug court from Alabama hit us up that wants us to come teach their entire staff. So I'm hoping to get this in front of more institutions and not just individuals. But the long-term plan is to build as many of these little teams as we can all across the country, where we're pairing up, people with financial resources, with people with street skills, with law enforcement, with authority, with judiciaries that care about, saving citizens, and essentially replicating everything we've done in Memphis. And the way I look at this is like, if we can pull this off in the deadliest city in America, dude, it's going to work anyway.
Yeah.
And there's no arguing.
I mean, so that's the thing. Like, you tell me all this, and it's so, I always bring it back to kind of my experience, right? So it's in my experience, but years ago, I think I told you about it, like my chief started this unit at my PD. The only, again, commander's intent, all we had was help overdose victims, addicts, go after frequent offenders, find out why they're offending, frequently, constantly, over and over again. And actually, those probably how we started with the first two, just those two. And that's all we had. We had no blueprint, nothing. Now you had who was in the unit, which really helped, was 3 combat vets. And 3 combat vets that understood, I'll call it like, I don't know if I call it like the right word, like unconventional warfare, that understood unconventional warfare. Like we weren't SF or anything like that, but we worked with a lot of groups overseas that did that stuff, and we learned a lot as a result. So just one day, like literally, brainstorming, and we were like, all right, how the hell are we going to do all this? So we're sitting there literally, like you picture like cops sitting around, like literally throwing darts at a wall. Like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's see, how are we going to do this? And one day, me and my partner, we were just sitting there and we're like, wait a minute. I was like, how about we use special forces doctrine, like UW, and I was like, wait a minute. Fuck yeah. I was like, that's exactly what we should be doing. I was like, man, the military's been doing this since the 1960s and has the blueprint already. So that's when we started making phone calls to like our active duty friends and stuff like that. And we're like, hey, this is what we're trying to do. And they were all like excited, like, fuck yeah, because that's their expertise. And man, like right when we took that mentality and that approach, it changed how the unit operated, right? At first we were like, all right, we're like jump out teams going after people, doing whatever. But you come to realize that arresting the same people over and over again is not doing anything. We're like, it's like a hamster. Exactly. It's the revolving door. The judiciary is not really capable of handling something like that. Nor, like you said, some care, most don't. They're just like, all right, get out. Like we've seen enough, get out. Like, type of mentality. So we started establishing partnerships with not just with other Leos, but actually civilians in neighborhoods. So, it's funny. We turned it into kind of like the winning the hearts and minds and teaching people what to look for, right? What to do, what to look for. And we built our own little army, essentially, that helped us. And they were in all walks of life, whether they were addicts, recovering addicts. Like we were able to, like, literally, we can go into the worst neighborhood in the city. People would know us. Hey, what's up, guy? Hey, I remember this Crips guy, he'd see me like I got, from work, I got this brand new Charger, for work. And he's walking through the city center. He's like, oh shit, Officer Kafel, you got that whip. And I'm revving up the engine. I'm like, hell yeah, I do. So it's, but that's the thing though, human connection, right? Yeah, it's fucking badass. I got this Charger. It's got a fucking Hemi. Like, hell yeah, it's gonna, make noise. So, that human connection was so critical. I even, talking to Scott Ayman that night, that when you bring it down to the human level, we're all looking for the same thing in the end, no matter what. So I love that idea behind Owen's Army is basically building human connection in different parts of the country. Because like you said, if you can do it in Memphis, you can do it anywhere.
Absolutely. And I love the example you just gave. So the game changer for what we're doing was when Scott took a great interest in what we're doing and was basically like, hey, this is not new. This is basically village stability operations.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me tell you how the Green Berets do it.
Yeah.
And so he basically handed us that methodology. We started implementing it, doing things like area denial.
Yeah.
And trying to attack drivers of instability, building trust. And it works. And you're absolutely right. It all comes down to human connection. I think we all have to remember, like, a few things. First off, we're all human. I don't care if you're a CIA case officer, if you're a gangster disciple, if you're a Green Beret, if you're a junkie, a judge, a cop, human trafficking. It doesn't matter. Yep. It does not matter. You're still a human being.
Yep.
And human beings have an innate need for connection.
Yep.
We all have things that matter to us. We all have people we love, and those common threads are ways. I don't want to use the word leverage, but that's what it is. I mean, you can you can build rapport and gain trust very easily in these low trust environments by leveraging those common threads of human connection, and it works. And I think the success that your unit had and the success that we're having and the success that Scott Mann had with Task Force Pineapple 8,500 miles away in Afghanistan, it illustrates a few things. One, obviously this methodology works. Two, that a top-down, bottom-up approach where you're working with institutions and street-level people, that works. And three, the world's ready for this, dude. Like everything has been so negative, so divisive.
Exactly.
When you look at the digitally represented world, like what you read on the news and what you see on TV, like we're supposed to all hate each other. That's what it feels like. But
us versus them.
It's us versus them. If you actually get out there on the street level, that is the farthest thing from the case ever. Everybody loves everybody. Like it is. If you read the headlines, that's not true. But if you actually get out there and talk to another human being, it is true. I'll give you an example of this. So my addiction started in Southern California when I was 14, 1996. And I have avoided that area like the fucking plague for the last almost 30 years, very intentionally. I've refused to go there. In the last year, I've been asked to come out there several times. It's always this very stressful, I don't want to, and like California is beautiful, yes, but it's full of bad people and I just don't want to go there. The people suck. The weirdest thing happened. All the times I've gone out there, everybody I interacted with was fucking amazing. It's just like they were in Memphis or in Georgia or in Tampa. And so finally it clicked this last trip out there. The problem was me this entire time. It was my perception of Southern California, which is actually a place full of good people. And I'm convinced that the majority of the world is full of good people who want better things to happen for their communities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like that crip you were dealing with. You've obviously made connection with that guy. The guy knows that you're on opposite sides of the law, but he's still willing to talk to you because in the back of his mind, he knows you're there to help that community, not just try to arrest him. And we see that a lot dealing with street gangs in Memphis. They're ready for a better way. They just need to know how. And they need to know they're worth something better. Like nobody is born saying, I want to grow up and become a junkie. I want to grow up and become a prostitute. I want to grow up and become a gangbanger and be in and out of prison. Nobody does that. That is not in any little kid's 15-year plan. Life went sideways for all of them somewhere, all of us somewhere. And helping people find their way back onto that path they should have always been on. Nobody's gonna fight you on that.
That's the thing is, so little backstory, like the way I grew up and, this was like early high school. I had a close friend of mine. He actually turned and joined ISIS, right? He went bad, like bad, and somewhere, somehow someone got to him. Like you could see the radicalness in him change and all that shit. And it was, and again, like, I tell people a story like, God damn, you could have gone that way too. I'm like, well, that's the reality. Yes, I could have, but it was my perception, right, that dictated where I went and how I went. And what I realized is perception is key in everything that we do. So like you said, with California, your perception, because it was hell for you, when you were 14. So forever, that's your perception, that's your interpretation. So it wasn't even, it's like I was reading recently this saying, this kind of spiel about, it's your interpretation, but we believe that is reality, is what we experience, right? But it is not. Reality is what we perceive. And then it comes back filtered through the wounds of our past. And that's exactly kind of what you were going through, trying to avoid, like the plague, to go back. So with me, like, I would love to absolutely go back, like, Lebanon, Iraq. Like, I would love to really go back and just see how it is, right? And, kind of avoid that perception that I've always had of, oh shit, it's going to suck. It's going to suck. It's going to suck. Where in reality, not really. There may be parts of it, sure. But overall, the people there are just like us, just from another country, and you saw it, like, evacuating the Afghanis, away. They wanted just to live in peace. right? They didn't want this type of oppression coming back to them. And like you said, August, for me, it was the same thing. August 2021, I'll never forget it, when I was in actually Key West on vacation when the fall happened. And my phone blew up, and we were like, obviously, all of us were hurting as a result. Every combat vet that I know, that went through that war, even Iraq, same thing with them. Like, I'm an Iraq war vet, and I got friends who are Afghan war vet. Like, both theaters falling hurt us deeply. I think it hurt us more than the war itself, because we felt we abandoned our allies, because that's something we grew up with.
Did.
Well, exactly, we did, and that's the reality. And we in our warrior mentality. We've always grown up and grown in the military as you never abandon your allies. You never leave a fallen comrade. And that's what we exactly did, which not us as veterans, but our government did. Right.
Right. And for me, I come from a long line of vets. Like, I think I'm the first generation that did not actually fight in combat in any war, going back all the way to the French Indian War in the 1700s.
Damn. Yeah. So you have a long lineage, though.
Yeah, very long. Like, my country, my family's been in this country since the 1600s. I've always been raised with like this ethos that America is the greatest country on earth, which it is.
Yeah.
Right? But I think I had our government kind of on a false pedestal for a very long time.
Yeah.
And watching, what transpired, not just in Afghanistan, but really a lot, like with the Kurds in Iraq, and a lot of situations like that. I think a lot of us have become disillusioned. And I think part of that is the immediate access we have to information with the internet. Like, you can get the perspective on from somebody who lives there.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, wait a second. We're the good guys. What the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
You gotta start questioning things. And I guess at the end of the day, I do still believe in the innate goodness of most Americans. Our government just kind of sucks sometimes.
Well, yeah, it kind of went a different direction than again what we grow up knowing it to be, what it is. And that's the thing. So I have a close friend of mine. He's former Green Beret. He owns a company, CEO, Northern Red, really, really good dude. And he talks to me about radical acceptance. This kind of thought of radical acceptance. And he's like, after the fall of Afghanistan, all that stuff, all that good, not good, but bad shit that happened. He said, it's one of those things, like, it's a radical acceptance. Accept it for what it is, and then move to a higher purpose. Right. Yeah. Our government did a shitty thing. Right. But then now as veterans, right, as combat vets, as guys and gals who've been in the trenches, all right, accept it now, but now we're moving to a higher purpose. And that's what you guys did. Like Scott Mann, he did himself. And that's the thing, talking to Scott and you guys, like, it like, I'm proud of the veteran community that came together and helped, our allies. Like, I always have a special place in my heart for that, because it showed what America truly is about. And, like Scott says, with Owen, you building Owen's army, no one's coming to save you, which is like, just that his phrase of saying that, when he first started saying it, I'm like, motherfucker, he's right. Like, it's really up to you to go out there and do the job, which that's what you guys are doing with Owen's army. I feel like, you're building this army, right? Literally this army of, I'll call them, like, special operators in a way, because of the way you're forming them. Right, of the way you're kind of recruiting, forming, finding the right people to utilize that know the streets. Because, like you said, you can't have one without the other. Like with me, the unit would have never been successful if we didn't have the buy-in from street level guys. It would never have happened. And if I was that asshole cop that that just wants to kick doors in all the time, you're never going to get trust. You're never going to get what the true mission is. I mean, I remember at one point, man, we go into neighborhoods, we'd know where the problem house is, and the problem house would be like the one that is, and you guys see what the trap house would be, the dirtiest, lawn is all fucked up, like people are laying on the lawn, like, just, you can tell that's the sore of the neighborhood. And all that, all we used to do is recruit the neighborhood to help us out and help themselves out. And that's exactly it. So like Owen's army that's what I see Owen's army as, is like a group of people coming together across the country in different segments of the country, that are essentially going to bring, unconventional warfare. And it sounds bad when you say unconventional warfare. Everyone's gonna be like, "Oh my God, what are you gonna create guerrillas and shit like that?" Like, no, that's not what it's about. So how can people? So I know you mentioned the website. How else can people kind of get in and get on to see what you guys are doing?
So owenarmy.com it's the website's still being added to. It's going to have a huge collection of all the different media appearances and podcast appearances. This will go on there.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of information just for free, like in all of our social media posts, our YouTube videos, you can go learn a lot about what we're doing. In your example of the problem house on the street, and you're recruiting the neighborhood to help, that is very much what we're doing with one key difference. We want to go to that problem house, and we want the worst person in that house to flip to our side and then go back into that house himself and change it from the inside out.
Yeah.
And we've had great success doing that. We have literally had a pimp help rebuild his brothel to become a safe house for women and kids.
That's awesome.
We had a dope boy negotiate the sale of his trap house from its lawful owner to us. And all of the methods we're using to do this are things anybody can do. Not anybody, but with a little bit.
Yeah.
We can build people up to the point where they can go in and do this. But we want to see our nation restored to what it always could have been and should have been from the bottom up. I want to see this grassroots movement sweep the entire country. We don't have to have an incarceration rate that is the highest in the world.
Yeah.
It's insane that we do. I don't know if everybody's
it is insane. It is insane.
America has more incarcerated people. I think we've got like 4 times as many people in prison as China, and China has 5 times our population. That's insane.
That is insane.
It shouldn't be that way. The majority of people in institutions are there for nonviolent offenses, for drug offenses, or they're there for stealing a car, but the victim never got their car back. This dude just goes and does 5 years in prison. Guess what? That victim who lost their car is helping foot the taxpayer bill to keep the guy in prison.
Yeah.
Really being victimized again.
Yeah.
So we're coming up with ideas on how to change that. And I'm not for decriminalization of anything. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Jail sucks. Jail is what helps me want to get sober. What I am saying is maybe the way we're approaching longer term incarceration could be done better. It costs the city of Memphis about $45,000 a year to keep somebody locked up.
Yeah.
It only costs, $10,000 to put them through a drug court program, and now they're a tax-paying member of the community. And I'm like, that makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah.
So trying to expand programs like that and then introduce them into cities that don't already have them. Drug court takes a population with a recidivism rate above 90%, and in most cases drops it below 30%. That's good for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we don't do that for violent people. We don't want to do that for child predators, but for the bulk of people sitting in your county jail, that's what they need.
Yeah.
They need help. They need to be rebuilt as human beings. I just went off on a tangent there.
No, you're good. Hey, welcome to ADD world, buddy. I'm like you. I just go all over the place.
Yeah. But these things we're doing, they're not unique. They may feel unique, but there's a lot more people around the country that think like us than the mainstream media would have you realize.
Yeah.
This is being done already in cities all around America to different degrees. What we're trying to do is bring all of these programs and bring the community advocates, community leaders, and the government side together around these issues. You've been a cop for some time now, and I'm pretty sure you'd agree with me on this statement. We will never prosecute our way out of the war on drugs.
No, absolutely not. Ever. Yeah.
It's always going to be, and the same holds true for the war on trafficking. So, you mentioned unconventional warfare. We are waging war.
Yeah.
We are waging war on dope, on addiction, on trafficking, on child exploitation, on all of these things.
Yeah.
And we're building an army of regular people who can go fight it with us. The war on drugs has been going on for 40 some odd years now. Abject failure by any metric you look at.
Oh my God.
Overdose deaths in America are at an all-time high. This is hitting kids from every walk of life.
Yeah.
Every walk of life. It is happening in every city in America. It is happening in your backyard. If you think it's not impacting you, you are sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
Same goes for sex trafficking, man. The stuff is happening all over the country, and we can all do something about it. It's not you don't have to be some special operator. You don't have to be a 10-time deployed combat vet. You don't have to be a cop. You don't have to be an addict. You can do something about this. And so to everybody that is watching this, find somebody local to you that's already moving the needle in some meaningful way and go start a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And if you feel like it, join the Owen Army and we'll walk you through how to get these partnerships and task forces off the ground. They work, man. We had a 14-year-old girl, 14-year-old girl go missing last week.
Yeah.
And
I saw
through
that.
our army in Memphis, we were able to find this girl and get her the help she needed in 36 hours.
That's incredible, man.
And not only that, while Ben was trying to find this girl, they actually visited this trap house that we thought she might be in. She wasn't there. It was a dry hole. But Ben did find another girl there, super young, super pretty, super addicted. And I think he messaged her. Here, you say that because you did.
I'm glad you brought that up. So in the process of looking for her, we developed some intelligence that a child prostitute in a known hotspot might know where she is. And so obviously I went to make contact with this girl. Like Jess said, very young, very pretty, did not fit in where she was. She did turn out to be 19, so we weren't able to get law enforcement to help the recovery, but she's been being trafficked since she was 15. The girl, did she check in rehab today?
I'm not sure.
I need to follow up with my team, but so this accidental encounter that we made while looking for this other teen, I think we were able to get this girl out of trafficking and into rehab and hopefully sober living. I'll get the update as soon as we end this call and shoot you a text to let you know.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
This whole thing, as part of the effort of finding this girl and as part of the effort of building a team out like this, you're able to offer services to a wide swathe of people.
Yeah.
And you never know who you're going to be able to help and when. Like stuff like that comes up all the time where there's this random silver lining to what is otherwise a pretty crappy situation.
Yeah. I mean, I want to just go back just for a second. So about you talking about you want to find who that person in that house is, like the ringleader, essentially of that. So it's funny you say that. So like that other house I told you about where the people, kind of I taught the neighborhood what to do, whatever. But 9 times out of 10, my target is the village elder, quote unquote, the person in that house that's in charge of everything. Yeah, exactly. And so in like most of my time, like recently we just dealt with a house and I right away identified who the ringleader is. And there's this older woman, grandmother type. And I'm like, all right, you're the one I need to now talk to. Like, you're the one I need to connect with because you're the glue that holds this hell house together. And you're the one I need to get to. So it's funny you said because, guys like you guys and myself and others that do it are able to identify right away who it is that's running the show. And it could be anyone in that house. But for me, like right away, I'm like, grandma's the one I want to talk to. Grandma's the one that's going to help me. That's going to help me to help her without even her knowing it. You know what I mean? That's you know what I mean? It's funny. And you could probably explain it better than me, but it's funny when they have no idea how they're helping themselves by just giving certain prompts. Hey, did you think about this?
You learn how to ask questions the right way and which questions to ask and which ones not to ask. And all of that those are skills you can develop. Yeah. Being able to make friends and identify the threat or the potential ally in a bad situation very quickly. Yeah. That is something that comes in super freaking handy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I know my ADD just hit me, but the girl that went missing, right? So you found this other girl inadvertently. Kind of what was, I know I followed you and I was texting with you guys too, like, holy shit, that's intense. Like what ended up happening, like after a while, you were able to find her, you said 36 hours?
Yeah, I think it was about 36 hours. There were 2 kids missing. It was a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old. We were able to locate both of them. They were together still and got them to the crisis center to start the process of figuring out everything that had happened, what all's going on now, what needs to happen next.
Yeah. Were they being trafficked?
No.
No? Okay. Okay.
But so there was some stuff developed in the process of trying to figure out where they might have gone that raised a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
But they were not, thankfully not.
No, thank God. I mean,
that's how these situations usually start. And here's the part that really fucks me up. You know how many kids go missing in Memphis every day?
No.
You know how many black runaways there are every day in Memphis? It's a lot, dude.
Really?
They don't have an army to go flood the streets with their picture And so that's something I'm trying to change. Like I want our role in Memphis to become more of a shepherding of all these missing kids cases, because those two kids, that story had a happy ending, and it very much could have had a very different ending. In fact, it might, in most cases, they don't get an ending.
Yeah.
You don't know what happened because they do end up getting picked up. They do end up getting trafficked. So I'm trying to build out a way for our team. We just got tapped in another one today. So I'm doing a test run of deploying the team on a case with people we don't know, that we know nothing about. And let's see if we can track them down.
Yeah.
But I want to come up with an SOP for when a kid does go missing in Memphis, that there is somebody on the scene, boots on ground, with their picture immediately.
Yeah.
Law enforcement doesn't have the resources for this. So it comes down to, you got to build out a volunteer network of people that give a shit.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of those. There's no shortage of those. You just got to get them all together.
Well, that's the thing. So what's interesting, recently I dealt with a missing 9-year-old at work. And man, on the law enforcement side, that's probably more than anything else. I could deal with homicide, shootings. I can even deal with getting shot at. But when it's like a 9-year-old that goes missing, dude, my heart was like and it got worse every 5 minutes that we couldn't find her. I knew it was getting worse and worse and worse. And who I ended up using? Everybody in the neighborhood. Like, I had 20 cars. We were getting resources. Arrowing was in the air. Like thank God that she was actually, and I mean, this the other part that would probably get you mad. Her mother was so drunk that she had completely forgotten that she gave her permission to go to a friend's house. Completely forgot.
Yeah, and we see that a lot.
Yes, I'm sure you guys see that a lot. But that pissed me off so much because, one, I'm like, man, we like again, I don't want to make it seem like, oh, poor me, like what the fuck, like. But to me, it was like, holy shit. Well, thank God it happened the way it happened, and thank God that we found her right away and we were able to bring her back home. I mean, you're talking about 3 hours, right? She was missing for 2 hours. They didn't notify us for about 2 hours. And then they finally go. So again, like in law enforcement, when you build that matrix, when a little kid goes missing, every minute counts. So now we're 2 hours behind, and she was last seen on a scooter. So I'm like, man, you're talking, this is going to be a 10, 15 mile radius we're going to have to cover, and we're going to have to knock on every door we can find looking for this girl. So I mean, I called the shift commander. I'm like, hey, pull the trigger, bring everybody in, off duty. Neighboring communities, we need everybody. Canines, you name it, we need it. And it almost, if the girl wasn't found, I was going to call in actually my fellow SWAT operators that specialize in search and rescue for like kids, where they have a very scientific method that they use in order to piece together like where she could have gone. But man, it was nerve wracking. So I'm sure for you, especially for you, every time you dealing with missing kid who potentially trafficked, like, I'm glad you were able to find 36, but that's a long time, man. 36 hours of going to look for her.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And in this particular case, it was extra tough because we personally know her.
Yeah.
There's just like that added layer of, we can't fuck this up.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with me, because like, recently in our county, unfortunately, we've had a couple kids turn up dead because they're autistic. They went towards water, stuff like that, and
we've had that happen.
So that's the thing. It gets extra hard now, especially with that in the back of our minds. And man, I almost cried literally when we found it. I'm like, holy fuck! Like that release, release finally was like there, because the whole time my mind was on it, like making sure everybody has their mission. I mean, that's the thing. Like it took an army to find her. Like everyone from the neighbor. I mean, again, like you said, people are willing to help more than more than what the media, the local media likes to portray, more than anybody else. Because I couldn't believe the amount of people, kids, people we had no idea, people the family didn't even know. They're like, send it, we're going to do Facebook pictures. We're going to put her on missing persons. Like they were doing that. And they would ask me like, Sergeant, is there anything else I can do? I'm like, do everything you think you need to do. Like, help us. Like, I don't care what you need to do. We even had a kid, a junior operator, like, for a car. He was like, he just got his license, 17 years old. He's like, sir, I just want to ask, can I go in, my parents' car? I'm 17. I am able to drive. I'm like, listen, kid, I love your passion, but I don't want you getting into a car wreck, because that'll put you in trouble as a junior operator. I was like, listen, just get on your bike, like, but again though, people have this drive to help, more than the media would like to portray. And this us versus them is such bullshit on the street level, and just seeing what you do, seeing what you guys do really shows how much bullshit it is, that us versus them.
Yeah. America is dying for a cause to rally behind.
Yeah.
They're dying for somebody to lead the way, to give them something to fight for. Like, everybody in the country right now needs this. They want it. We crave it.
Yeah.
Somebody just has to take the charge just like you did the other day, man. Take the charge, lead the way, give them something to fight for.
Yeah.
People are going to come together, man.
Oh, yeah.
I think we've been on such a decades long, it feels like now, tear of division and hate. And we're starting to all realize it's manufactured.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the desire and willingness we're seeing in people to jump behind these causes is almost like to give a middle finger to the status quo, man. Like, this isn't us.
Yeah.
Right? I just think the timing is great for all of these. And Scott's proved it time and again with, Task Force Pineapple, Task Force Lahaina, the Wynn, Arkansas tornadoes, North Little Rock. Like, people will jump at the opportunity to be of service to their fellow man.
Yeah.
We just will. That's the American way.
Exactly. And, this is a great way to sort of start coming to a close on the episode. Like, if you and Jess just want to share whether a tidbit or a suggestion, or even to other addicts, that listen to the show, or even cops that know addicts that can send them to the show, like, hey, you need to listen to these two. If there's something you want to share, something that you guys, through your resiliency, through everything that you guys fought for, any sort of advice you guys can give out to the population that listen to this channel.
Yeah, recovery is worth it. Dude, there's not one day I have ever regretted getting clean. And my drugs of choice were everything: alcohol, heroin, crack. I was an IV drug user. I mean, I was like the worst of the worst. I've never looked back and wished I hadn't gotten clean, but I had to tell myself in the beginning that if I ever decide recovery is not worth it, the streets aren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I can go right back to that tomorrow if I get tired of living this way. But not once have I regretted it. And that was 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Holy crap. Jess, you hit 6 years yesterday.
Oh, shit.
We completely Look at that.
that.
Recovery's so awesome. We don't even pay attention to the date anymore.
So yesterday.
Help is out there, man. Find a meeting. I thought I was special for like 25 years and I didn't need 12-step meetings, so I just didn't do it.
Yeah.
But if you're struggling, man, give a meeting a shot. If you don't like the meeting you go to, find another one. AA, NA, CA, pick your A. It doesn't matter. The steps are the steps, man. There's a program out there that'll help you get better. There's people that'll help you get better. I'm not hard to find on social media. I am hard to get a hold of on social media sometimes, but jump in the comments on one of my posts and be like, hey, man, I need help. I'll send you a guy to you who can get you into detox and rehab in less than 24 hours, and it won't cost you a penny.
Yeah.
Like, we are here to help. Life is so much better on this side of addiction. I cannot even put it into words.
Yeah.
And all of those skills that you picked up in active addiction, the willingness to hustle, the ability to make friends at bad places very quickly, they come in pretty damn handy living on the right side of the law. You're able to pull off some pretty amazing things. Jess, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. Yours is so well worded. I'm going to try to just say a few things, but keep an open mind and be available to be of service. You see that, you see that junkie on the side of the gas station. He smells like shit. He looks like shit. And you really just want to look away. And most people do.
Yeah.
Go talk to him. Go say, hey, what's up? Even if he's like, hey, can I get a beer? Maybe not saying that you necessarily have to get him a beer, but this is a human and he wants connection.
Yeah.
He even maybe just wants a smile. And that's one thing that we really try to focus on is not looking at you for what you look like on the outside, but possibly who you are on the inside. Because at some point in this guy's life, he took a wrong turn, and then he took another, and then he took another. And that used to be me. I used to be that junkie on the side of the gas station that people would look away from.
Yeah.
And it is sometimes it just takes someone being willing to connect on a human fucking level.
Yeah.
And being like, you know what? I'm not going to give you money, but I'll go buy you some food. What do you want to eat?
Yeah.
And just them knowing that they matter that they are worthy of someone even coming to speak to them, that they are worthy of someone buying them food. That makes all the difference sometimes. And for people that want to go do this and want to do like what we're doing in Owen Army, even if you want to just go try it out and go, feed some people, it's good to be consistent with it. If you just keep showing up, especially if you have like this one little part of town that you want to serve, be consistent with it. Keep showing your face, because sooner or later, those people are going to be, oh, I saw you here last week. Oh, you brought me that bread last week. They're going to start getting familiar with you. You're going to start gaining trust, and possibly one day they'll come up and be like, you know what, I'm tired of this. What can I do? Where can you get me some help?
Yeah.
So be consistent, be willing to serve, and just let people know that they are worthy of love and acceptance.
Yeah. Wow.
And for anybody that doesn't understand the gravity of what she just said, this was not staged. I'm going to give you an example. 6 years and 1 week ago, I was ready to kill myself, and I was about to do it. No joke. I walked into a gas station, and a woman I had never seen before in my life smiled at me, and I changed my mind. And a week later, I got clean.
Wow.
Like, that's a stranger's smile kept me on this earth, and here we are today. So,
wow. I mean, again, you guys are the example of that, of that resilience, of bouncing back, of giving back, of purpose-driven kind of missions that you guys have developed. And I mean, it's something, again, like, it's to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people that you guys have run across, like, holy shit, how did those two manage with all the shit they've been through for the past 20 plus years? And here they are today, kind of living examples of how to beat addiction, become a survivor, and then give back. So, I mean, I like I said, I'm blessed to have met you through Scott, and I love chatting with you guys here and there when you guys have a minute to breathe, a couple text messages here and there, and man, it's incredible. And, everybody that listened to this episode, guys, give me a sec, Ben and Jess, give me a second. I'm going to do a quick outro, and then we'll talk offline for a minute. But wow, again, such an incredible power couple, literally, both of them. And you guys get on owenarmy.com, check out what they're doing, join, right? Help create these little teams, help create what America's really about, right? Like, fuck all this noise from the mainstream media. I've gotten to the point where I don't even listen to politicians anymore. I've gotten to, like, I have ignored every possible, like, my wife every once in a while said, did you see what, this governor said? I was like, I don't give a fuck what they said. Like, see you later. Like, I don't give a shit. But that's the thing. Like, be a thinker, right? Not a follower. That's kind of, something I'm teaching my son. He's high functioning autistic. So it's like, be a thinker, not a follower. And that's the biggest thing I would say. But Ben and Jess, you guys are awesome. I love you guys so much. You guys are doing great things, and we'll talk soon.
We love you too, and we appreciate you sharing your platform.